Good morning, everyone. This is Sharon with Network in Action, and I'm here today with Jonathan Day with Elevate Estate Planning. Hi, Jonathan.
Hey Sharon, how's it going?
It's good. I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Thanks, me as well.
Yeah, good. Good. Well, to kick us off, I'd love to hear how you got into estate planning and yeah, how you ended up here.
Sure, yeah, no, absolutely. I think for most people, kind of their why and how they wind up what they're doing is always pretty interesting. And for myself, my story kind of starts with my grandfather, who was a very fascinating man, lived an interesting life. World War II veteran, was at Midway. Grew up on an apple orchard, rode a horse to school. And then by the time he died, had a smartphone. So huge, changes during his lifetime. But kind of how he inspired me into estate planning was accidental, I guess you could say, on his part. But whenever I was in law school, he became incapacitated. And my grandfather was himself an attorney and a judge. And so, lived a long life. I think he was 94, 95 at the time, still living at home, still independent, very sharp. But you know how those kind of things go, where was changing a light bulb and kind of slipped off the bed as he was changing it, hurt his hip and was taken off his blood thinners to run some tests, had a stroke. And that's kind of how he became incapacitated. But once he did, what my family found out was that he hadn't done any estate planning, which,
Uh-huh.
as you can imagine, came as a shock, given that he was a lawyer. So you just assumed
Right.
he had all those ducks in a row. As we kind of found out, my grandmother just never wanted to talk about it, and so they just never got around to it. But the issue in that situation was that it's a very kind of traditional marriage in that sense, and that my grandfather handled all the money stuff. And so when he became incapacitated, my grandmother didn't really know what to do in terms of being able to pay the mortgage and all that kind of stuff. And so, my dad and my uncle called me, and I was in law school at the time. And they're like, well, what do we do? And I was like, well, I'm not exactly sure. But I was able to get them in touch with an estate planning attorney back home. And he was able to kind of swoop in and save the day and help resolve the situation. And just kind of witnessing that and kind of how my family went from very stressed out and scared to kind of having the issue resolved and feeling very comfortable and being in a good spot was kind of inspiring to me as a law student. And kind of seeing that was trying to determine what type of law I wanted to go into, and seeing that interaction kind of inspired me to well, that's what I wanted to do. And coming into law was help people. And so seeing that interaction take place and kind of how that was able to help my family kind of drove me into estate planning.
Oh, thank you for sharing that story. I can only imagine that it has you that much more invested in the work that you do with your clients.
Definitely.
Yeah, so what would be important for people to know about how you work with your clients, what that process looks like, what they could potentially expect?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think for us, it all kind of starts with education. And so, the goal for us in preparing an estate plan for any prospective client is that we want them to understand what estate planning is, what it's trying
Mhm.
to accomplish, and then the different avenues we have available to us to accomplish their unique goals based on their values, their family dynamics, and that sort of thing. And so, it's really our objective to provide them with that education, give them that background information for them to make an educated and informed opinion for themselves as to which type of planning is going to help them accomplish those goals without feeling like we are kind of dictating to them what we think they need.
Mhm.
Is really kind of the goal of the process. And so our meeting structure is very much formatted to deliver that information, to allow them to ask all their questions about it, because it is a lot of information to be given when talking about doing a comprehensive estate plan. But giving them the opportunity to ask those questions, get them all answered, feel like they have a good foundation of what estate planning is and what it can do before crafting that estate plan that's going to best fit their family.
Awesome. And kind of to tag along with what you just said, do you have like an introductory phone call that you do with people, or
Yeah,
what would that first step look like for someone?
absolutely. So the first step is generally whether it's a referral or someone who just found us online or seen us after a speech or something like that. Is we do kind of a 10-minute introductory phone call, and kind of the
Mhm.
purpose of that call is to get to know a little bit about a prospective client, let them, find out a little bit about us, about who I am, what our firm is, and kind of what we do, and outline for them what the rest of the process will look like. And so it starts with that 10-minute phone call. At the end of that call, we send out, if it seems like a good fit, we'll send
Hmm.
out our intake forms, which is more or less a financial questionnaire and a document we refer to as our assessment of estate planning concerns and objectives, which is a checklist of sorts that gets prospective clients thinking about the different things that estate planning can accomplish that they might not think of off the top of their head, which starts to give us a framework and sort of a foundation for what an estate plan for them might look like that's going to fit their family well. Once they've gotten that completed and back to us, we'll schedule a sit-down meeting in which we'll walk through those documents together. We'll provide that information I kind of talked about in my previous answer in terms of outlining, what documents are part of a comprehensive estate plan. What are they trying to accomplish? Why are they important? What is a living will? What is a living will? What is a power of attorney? What is a will versus a trust? When might you want to use one versus the other? All of that information will be conveyed in that sit-down meeting as we, kind of walk through their financials, because that's going to help kind of guide us in what might be a good fit, and walk through their assessment of concerns and objectives to start identifying, what's important to them, as we can then begin crafting, that comprehensive estate plan that's very unique to that family and their individual circumstances. From there, we give ourselves usually 7 to 10 days to get everything drafted, kind of work through the final details, and yeah, come in. We have what we call a signing ceremony where everything gets witnessed and notarized and executed, and they walk out with their estate planning binder, fully kind of, legally protected from incapacity
Hmm.
and death. So that's our process in a nutshell, I guess you could say.
Yeah, great. Thank you just for walking me through it. It's super helpful. So let's talk about the when, because just my experience in talking with most people I know about estate planning is it's something they're constantly thinking about doing later, for the future, maybe in 10 years. So how would you answer, like, when should a prospective client start reaching out to you or an estate planner to get started in the process?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we all think that we're all going to live forever, right? And so it always seems like this type of planning can be pushed off, right? It's an expense we don't want
Mm-hmm.
to deal with right now. It's something we don't want to think about right now. It's uncomfortable thinking about what might happen if we're incapacitated or when we die. And so that's something that we understand. Anytime a prospective client comes to us, is that it's a difficult conversation to have.
Mm-hmm.
As to the wins, you know, ideally, we kind of say that anytime a child turns 18, they should have something, right? So if they're going off to college, and now they're legally adults, and if something happens while they're at college, some kind of medical incident, at least having a HIPAA release or a living will, something that could, appoint their parents to still continue to get access to their medical records to make decisions if necessary, would be good. So from there, on is really a good point. But more realistically, when clients
Mm-hmm.
actually come to see us, we kind of say starting at 30, buying your first house or having your first child, kind of whichever occurs
Mm-hmm.
first, are all kind of good triggering events. Usually, it's the children. Whenever somebody has their first child and now they're thinking about, someone's going to be left behind if something happens to them, and what might happen. Who would I want to raise my children? Who could raise my children with the same values that I have, and give
Mm-hmm.
them the best possible life, be the best possible parents. And so that's usually kind of the triggering event for a lot of our younger clients, is coming in not so much to think about what's going to happen to my stuff when I die, but what might happen to my children. How will they be raised? Will they be provided for in the right way? Can I structure an inheritance that I might leave behind for them in a way that they're not just getting it at 18 and inheriting a bunch of money? Can we structure that over a longer period of time to ensure that, it does what the parents would want it to do?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, that's kind of that.
Yeah, it sounds like there's been a real shift in these last years, in the mindset of when to go about estate planning. Like, it's not just for people in their golden years, in their retirement years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely, and I think that the 30 young family, that's kind of the starting point. That's usually whenever most people are getting their first estate plan done. And then we kind of see a couple other big changes in life that are also good occasions for someone to come in and have a conversation with us. A common one, kind of if we're just progressing, linearly through time as to when these events kind of happen. Divorce is also
Mm-hmm.
a good occasion to come in and revisit things. Even if someone has an estate plan, a lot of people do what we call the "Honey, I Love You" plan, which is everything I have to my spouse,
Right.
which is usually no longer the desired outcome after a divorce.
Right.
And so getting that updated to update beneficiaries, making sure that we're monitoring and updating beneficiary designations, making sure that there's no life insurance policy accidentally going to an ex after a remarriage, which happens more frequently than you might expect. Just making sure that the plan, if you have one, has been updated to reflect that change in circumstances, or if you haven't gotten one yet, especially if you have children, getting one to make sure that whatever you leave behind can make it to your children, but structured in the right way that, maybe you don't want it to be in the exclusive control of your former spouse, depending on how that relationship is, but ensuring that it can be structured to your kids at the right time would be important after something like a divorce. Other times people come in might be empty nesters. So maybe they had an
Mm-hmm.
estate plan, kind of got it done in their 30s, like we talked about with some of our young clients. But what they were planning for at that time is no longer the primary concern. And now
Mm-hmm.
they're thinking more about, okay, what do my adult children's personalities look like? Do we have any kids with substance abuse issues that we might not want to have, an outright distribution of cash? Or do we
Mm-hmm.
have kids in bad marriages that we might want to structure the inheritance in some type of trust to avoid potential loss to a later divorce? These are
Mm-hmm.
the kind of concerns that these empty nesters might be having as they're kind of transitioning from, young family to, adult children, not quite to retirement age yet, not really to their senior years, but life circumstances have changed and, they want to update their plan in a way that reflects those changes. And then, of course, we also have the classic, I think what most people probably think of, which is, your
Mm-hmm.
seniors, your retirees, people who are thinking about their legacy, thinking about kind of intergenerational transfers of wealth and providing for children or providing for grandchildren or providing for the causes that they're passionate about that have meant a lot to them during their lifetime. That kind of legacy planning also has a different angle than the planning you might do earlier in life. And so those are kind of I guess you could say the big occasions in life that people wind up coming in and having a conversation.
Yeah, so important and so unique, right? To each individual.
Definitely.
So as we come near the closing today, we started hearing personally how you got into estate planning, and after being in this industry for quite a long time, what do you love most about the work that you do?
Yeah, it's I'm one of the fortunate lawyers that really loves what they do. I think most
Uh-huh.
lawyers, if you took a poll, aren't that crazy about really what they do. But for me, I think it starts at kind of what inspired me, in watching what happened with my grandfather, helping people, right? Helping
Mm-hmm.
families, usually in either happy times, and we're planning for contingencies and ensuring that children are well taken care of, and the peace of mind that provides. I can almost always see after we get everything signed and done, a sense of relief come over clients' faces as they're leaving my office with their completed comprehensive estate plans, and just feeling good that they knew that was something they needed to do and they got it taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
So getting to help people in that way is great. Um, yeah, no, it's very. I'm very fortunate to get to be able to help people do something that's so important and provide the peace of mind that comes with it for sure.
Yeah, great. Good. Well, so if somebody watches this video and it triggers, oh my gosh, I'm in one of those scenarios. I want to have a conversation. What's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, our office line, the primary line is 303-566-0614. Or if you want to contact me directly, my email is day, my last name, at elevateestateplanning.net.
Great. Thank you, Jonathan. It was great talking to you today.
Of course,
And
you too, Sharon.
yeah, take good care.